Is your spine out of alignment? Have you been told by somebody that you have a curve issue and you need to have your spine corrected? What does spine alignment even mean? These are some of the questions that patients come to us regularly. Often they've been to see another practitioner and they've been told something like their spine is out of alignment or they have spinal curves, and they wanted to get a second opinion because they weren't quite sure what that meant or whether they really needed the treatment that was being recommended. So what I thought we'd do today is really talk about how alignment works, what matters and what doesn't, when alignment might not be a problem at all, and some of the things to look for to know if this is really an issue. And let's talk about what it means and most importantly, what it doesn't. So first of all, we need to talk about what does it mean to say your spine is out of line or out of alignment? This is something that patients sometimes feel. They come feeling pressure in areas or tension and they think maybe something feels a bit out of place, it doesn't feel right. Or unfortunately, sometimes they've gone to see a practitioner who has taken some x-rays, drawn some scary red lines on them and shown them, look how out of alignment you are, often with a kind of message of fear of you're in a really bad way and if you don't get this fixed soon, it's going to be real trouble. And unfortunately, that's often used to sell a large package of care that isn't always justified by the evidence. But to really think about alignment, we have to go back to the origins of chiropractic. Chiropractic as a profession is about 130 years old. And chiropractors, when x-rays were invented, actually pioneered this. Before we had x-rays, what we did as chiropractors is we would just use our hands. We would feel along the spine. And if we felt anything that felt a bit asymmetrical, we would go, ooh, that must be a bone that's out of place. And we'd lie the patient down and we'd adjust them and manipulate. And often that alignment corrected and the patient felt better. And we went, oh wow, we put the bone back in because there was often a satisfying pop and the patient felt better. That must be what happened. Then x-rays came along and we got to really see the spine in detail and understand a lot more about it. And chiropractors were some of the biggest users of x-rays and we really pushed the technology back then. Now, though, things are quite different and we know a lot of things we didn't know back then. Firstly, the original bone out of place theory, chiropractors often refer to this as boop theory, has been completely discredited. That was not what was happening at all. What we thought back then over 100 years ago was, if you imagine this is a part of your spine, this is part of the low back, so if you took it out from lower down here, we thought something like this could happen, where the spine could literally misalign. One spine would slide sideways on another, or it would get stuck in a wonky position. So you could think that something is out of alignment like that. And that was often because of muscle spasm would make it feel very stiff in that area, and it would pull something out the way. We'd adjust it, that would relieve the spasm and the muscles would reset. We would think we realigned the vertebra when in reality the body just realigned itself. But the idea that bones actually physically went out of place has been discredited. For a bone to physically do that, I tell my patients all the time, you need to have had a major car accident. You're not walking into a chiropractic clinic. You've been sent over to A&E. You'd be in a really, really bad way. You wouldn't be able to walk around. So that takes a massive amount of force. It almost never happens. You don't really get dislocations in the spine without a car accident or something like that. What we then thought, though, was that, okay, maybe it's not misalignments in the spine. Maybe it's misalignments in the whole curve. So if I take my trusty spine model here, this is as if you were looking at my spine. That's the back of the head there. We've got the neck here. This is where the shoulders would come out, and then all the way down the bottom, if you can see that, we've got the pelvis, hips come out there. So we know that bones can't physically dislocate very easily in the spine, but we would sometimes take x-rays and see, well, maybe it wasn't dead straight. Maybe there's a bit of a curve here. Or maybe if we were looking from the side, we might see there's a bit more of a tilt on the front. You know, the head's coming forwards there, a bit more of a curve or a bit less of a curve than we would normally see. And we would think, okay, there's probably a spinal alignment issue here. And we would take x-rays and we'd treat patients. And what we were trying to do back then was correct the curves. We thought we had this idea of whether a curve could be completely normal, and if we could get patients back to that perfect posture, dead straight, that would relieve their pain. Again, recent research has shown this isn't really the case. The truth is, there is a huge variation in what a normal spine looks like. In fact, chiropractors have been debating and arguing for decades about what a normal amount of curve in the low back or a normal curve in the neck should look like. And the truth is, we've never been able to agree, because just like people are all kinds of shapes and sizes on the outside, on the inside, there's varying degrees of normal as well. So there's no such thing as a biomechanically normal spine in that sense. And anyone who's telling you that your curve is here and it must be back there, they've probably just picked a fairly arbitrary set of alignment values to look at. So The truth is that alignment is a lot more complex than we think. And it is very, very normal to see alignment changes in people who have no pain and have no problems. In fact, a lot of research has shown that not only do these people not have pain, and it's very common, but unlike what some of these practitioners led patients to believe, it doesn't mean that you're going to have problems in the future either. So you can't even predict somebody's pain based on a scan or based on an x-ray. Even with modern MRIs, if you show me somebody's MRI and say, does this person have pain or not? I couldn't tell based on that without knowing anything else about them. I might as well flip a coin. So even modern MRIs can't tell us that. X-rays certainly can't very well either. So bones being out of place isn't really a thing. And changes in alignment, it's not always necessarily a problem. Now, you can get more severe versions, what we call scoliosis, where you do have, quite a significant twist in the spine there. That can cause problems. But we're talking about curves where you tend to have, 15, 20, 30 degrees. It's quite a significant curve. It's usually something you can see in somebody without having to take an x-ray. Sometimes the x-ray looks bigger or less than it looks like on the person. But that degree of scoliosis, it does happen, but it's really quite rare. Very slight changes where things are a few degrees out or the head sits slightly over on one side than the other. Those can be very, very normal and they don't necessarily need correction. So it's something to watch out for there. If you're with a practice and they've taken x-rays and they've drawn all these lines on it and they've not just shown you that there's problems there, but they've kind of led with fear. If you feel the message has been, thank goodness you came now, this was about to get really bad, that's a red flag. And it is almost always followed up with a large treatment plan of 30 or 40 visits over months and months. And usually there'll be some kind of payment plan where if you pay today, you can save a huge amount. I've talked about in other videos how that's really just a marketing tactic. And they're pressuring you to sign up to large visits because they know that if you went visit to visit, people usually fairly quickly go, oh, I'm not really seeing a change here. And they tend to opt out. But once you've invested, people feel like they're more committed. I've had patients come in and tell me that they've been told by another practitioner they needed to have 3 visits a week for 6 months. This huge plan up front based on when they've shown me the x-rays, pretty normal looking x-rays, curves that are not that asymmetrical, no big alignment issues, anything like that. So it's rare, but unfortunately it does happen. And x-rays certainly have their uses, but they can be misused to try to scare people into more things as well. So where do we go from here? Well, the truth is spines are actually adaptable. And just like people are not perfectly symmetrical on the outside, the spine doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical either. Somebody's posture and somebody's alignment, it doesn't tell me if this person's in pain. It just tells me what do they tend to do a lot. If somebody uses a mouse a lot, their right hand, if they're right-handed, usually the right shoulder's a little bit lower because it's been pulled around that way. Now, in some cases, we might get some relief for their neck and shoulder pain if we get them to swap to a different mouse or change the desk setup. I've certainly seen that many times in my career, but it's not something I've needed an x-ray for, and it's certainly not something that they've needed 30 visits to try and correct. It's often just a case of changing some habits. Often we'll need to treat as well to unlock things, but we're looking at where does the problem come from, not just a problem in the spine, but why did things adapt that way? Similarly, some people come in with very curved forward head posture as well, getting a lot of tension around here. That's somebody where if we can just ease that posture down, straighten things out a bit, often it can produce some results. But the key with them is that in most cases, I want them to be starting to feel better within the first, certainly 5 or 6 visits. We want to be seeing some changes early on. And equally, if they're feeling better and they move, I'm not so worried about what the x-ray shows because the research is really clear on this. The x-rays don't predict pain, but actually a loss of mobility can. If somebody is stuck like this all the time, that's going to predict they're going to have pain because they can't do the things they need to do. If their x-ray looks like this, but they can straighten up and they can lean back, that just tells us that the body generally prefers to be here, but it can move into other positions as well. So really good modern evidence-based chiropractic care. It doesn't just look at the x-rays. That's very outdated. All the guidelines have said for decades now, don't just look at the x-rays. You need to do a thorough assessment, look at everything that's going on with the patient. The x-rays just form one part of it. If you're seeing a practitioner and really their justification for care, their explanation of why you need treatment is all on the x-rays, it might be worth getting a second opinion. Not all the time, but it should certainly raise questions and it should make you wonder, do I really need this, especially if it's combined with a large treatment plan, a lot of visits, and a kind of higher pressure sales approach? That's something where you think it might be worth just stopping, taking those x-rays, and you're allowed a copy because they're yours, by the way, not the practice's. Taking those x-rays, take them to another practitioner and just ask for a second opinion. We regularly give second opinions here to patients in the area. And, sometimes I do turn around and say, yep, that fits with what you've been told, that kind of plan, that's what we would have recommended here. In which case, by all means, tell them to continue. That's fine. However, sometimes we're sent scans and x-rays and treatment plans that just do not match up. So it is worth getting a second opinion there if you're not sure. The other thing is that the treatment shouldn't just be based on trying to correct posture on its own. It should be based around what you want to get out of care. Ethical practitioners are always looking to identify what our patients' goals are. Because, if I'm honest, we have goals for our patients too. We often would like them to have a stronger core, have a more mobile spine, maybe make some lifestyle changes and change their desk setup, this kind of stuff. We would like to do that because we know it helps our patients. But our patients often have specific goals as well, whether that is they want to start getting back into a bit more exercise, they want to be able to sleep through the night, they want to be able to concentrate at work without the neck pain and headaches really distracting them. A good practitioner should always be basing their care around your goals, not just trying to get you to want their goals for you. So that's another thing to look out for. And your goals won't really be influenced massively by the x-rays most of the time. So it's one of the reasons why it's not the be all and end all there. Ultimately, you deserve a plan and care that is modern, that is up to date, that is based on the latest evidence and is unique to you and isn't something where you feel like you're being just pushed into a cookie cutter hole because that's how that particular practitioner likes to operate there. So hopefully now we've talked more about the alignment. You understand more about how alignment works and it doesn't. You don't get these dislocations. You don't get the boop theory, bones out of place. And actually, small changes in alignment are not always necessarily a problem. Alignment and posture is certainly not a life sentence, and it's not a very good way to predict pain on its own either. You should be seeing somebody who maybe they've taken x-rays, but they should be looking at all the other aspects of your health as well and helping create a plan that's not just unique to you, but helps you get back to your goals as well. So hopefully that's been helpful. If you're ever unsure, like I say, get a second opinion. If you're in the Sevenoaks area and you've been told that you're out of alignment, but you're not quite sure, we do offer free 15-minute consultations. It's basically a free chat. You can come down, you can meet one of the team, bring x-rays, bring scans for anything else like that as well. We'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction and let you know if that's something that does need addressing or if it's something that you might be fine with. So if you've got any questions, let us know below. Otherwise, we'll see you soon for another video.